"Get out of my sight if you do not belong here." The words landed like a slap in the dining room, sharp and unmistakable. The fluorescent bulbs hummed overhead. The coffee smelled of burnt grounds and cinnamon. Plates clinked in a rhythm that had nothing to do with the sentence. Jamal Reed stood with his apron damp at the waist, fingers still sticky from sauces, and felt the room fold around that voice. He had been a line cook at the Magnolia Bistro for 5 years, quiet, reliable, the kind of worker managers always assumed they could push. But beneath his apron, he hid a small phone with a camera and a folder of notes. A thin metal recorder sat taped inside the pocket of a worn jacket belonging to Maria Lopez, a server who had whispered about the manager for months. The manager, Richard Hale, spit a laugh and said another sentence that proved the point. "You people should know your place." Jamal slid his thumb to start recording. Outside, a car idled, headlights low. Captain Alan Torres checked his watch and breathed out. The operation was on. The shift had felt like a ritual of depletion for a long time. Jamal remembered the burn of the fryer, the metallic tang of sweat and oil on the back of his tongue, the way Richard would walk by and touch a shoulder as if ownership could pass through skin. "You think you can run this line?" Richard had asked that night, leaning over the steam with a scent of cheap cologne and stale cigarettes. Jamal answered once, then twice, then finally with the firmness he had taught himself. "I am doing my job." "You should be grateful we keep you," Richard snapped, and the words were a ledger against dignity. At home, Jamal had dried his hands and called Maria. "Are you sure the recorder is working?" she asked. "Yes," he said, "and Captain Torres said the surveillance van will be 2 blocks away. Don't move the evidence." Maria's voice trembled, but her words were precise. Jamal thought of his mother, Rosa Martinez, who had taught him to fold towels into exact squares, and taught him that respect was earned and stolen. Neither would protect him now. A text vibrated in Jamal's pocket. "Ready," it read, in Captain Torres's terse script. He pressed record. Outside, the soundscape changed. A low diesel engine rolled softly, the scent of rain mixing with exhaust, the soft murmur of 2 SUVs slowing against the curb. Captain Torres watched the bistro's glass from the unmarked vehicle. He had been an agent of the force for 20 years, but this was different. He had received a complaint from Detective Priya Shah, who had been tracking a pattern of racist abuse and interference with workers at multiple restaurants. "We have to get this on tape," she had told him. "Documentation builds a chain of custody that holds up." Inside, Jamal and Maria exchanged quick, deliberate lines. "When he comes by, do not confront him," Maria mouthed. "Let him speak, let it record." Jamal nodded, palms damp. The kitchen fans whined. He felt the camera against his thigh, the slight vibration of his own heartbeat. On the sidewalk, Officer Marcus Lee checked the camera feed, his breath fogging in the night air. "We have visual, we are in position," he said into the radio. The operation began not with force, but with patience. The confrontation unfolded like a rite. Richard stalked through the pass, his tie loose, his voice ablade. "I run this place," he said, "not people like you." Jamal replied with lines practiced in quiet. "I do my work. I do not want trouble." Richard was louder, more theatrical, drawing gasps from a dinner table near the window. "You belong somewhere else," he shouted, and then shoved a tray against Jamal's side in a motion that was meant to humiliate. "Do that again, and I will show you where." Maria's recorder caught every syllable, the scrape of metal, the clink of a glass falling and breaking. Maria hissed a soft, "Jamal, stay calm." Jamal inhaled the smell of lemon cleaner and adrenaline. "Do you hear yourself?" a patron named Leah O'Connor called out, voice thin but present. Richard snapped at her to mind her own meal. Jamal kept his hand steady. "Keep recording," Maria mouthed. "Do not let him make you the story." Then the line crossed a legal threshold. Richard reached for Jamal's apron and twisted fingers in a way that left a bruise. Jamal cried out. "Get your hands off me," he said, voice cracking. "You will regret this," Richard threatened. The kitchen door burst open, and Detective Priya Shah, Captain Torres, and Officer Marcus Lee moved in, badges raised, voices low but firm. "Hands where we can see them," Captain Torres ordered. "You are under arrest for assault and a hate-motivated offense." Richard's face went from red to gray. "What is this?" he shouted, then tried to shove past. Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder, and the room smelled suddenly of iron and the ozone smell of police lights. "You are being recorded," Priya said quietly into the recorder she held, ensuring a secondary layer of evidence. There were shouts, a clatter of plates, a cry from a dishwasher named Daniel Ortiz who tried to protect a pan. Jamal felt something in his chest ease, like a knot finally loosening. Evidence collection followed protocol in a way that felt oddly ceremonial. Detectives wore gloves while removing Maria's recorder and Jamal's phone. Officer Lee sealed the devices in evidence bags, wrote their names on the tamper-proof seal, and documented chain of custody. "We will log every transfer," Captain Torres explained to Jamal, in a voice that was both professional and human. "This makes everything admissible. Do you want to give a statement now?" Jamal nodded, hands still trembling. He watched as Karen Blake from Human Resources arrived, late, an HR folder tucked under her arm, her face already a study in damage control. Leah O'Connor, the patron, gave a statement to a local reporter from the Evening Ledger who had been called by community organizer Daniel Ortiz to cover the incident. "I saw intimidation," Leah said into a small microphone. "It felt like a show of power." The bistro smelled of bleach and spilled wine, of ruptured decorum. News spread like steam through the neighborhood. The inquiry that followed was public. The footage went to forensic analysis. A lab technician named Sofia Mendez enhanced the audio, isolating slurs into transcripts that could be printed. The recording, the surveillance footage from Captain Torres's feed, and Maria's recorder were all entered into evidence. At the pre-hearing hearing, the prosecutor, Olivia Grant, spoke of patterns and a history of complaints filed by staff names that now add weight. Witnesses included Jamal, Maria, Daniel Ortiz, Leah O'Connor, and a line cook named Anthony Green who testified about past incidents. The defense attempted to undercut credibility, but the chain of custody was intact and the testimony was consistent. "We will not underestimate the impact of documentation," Detective Priya Shah told the court in a calm voice. "Recorded discrimination is evidence." The judge set a date for the formal hearing and announced that an internal review at the Magnolia Bistro was underway. 1 month later, the bistro had a boarded window and a notice of inquiry from the city health department taped to the door. Owner Evelyn Price issued a statement that promised changes and an audit that would be seen by community groups and the local paper. 3 months on, Richard Hale was indicted for assault and hate-motivated conduct and suspended from his role pending trial. A union representative, Daniel Ortiz, organized meetings and trainings for staff across the district. 6 months later, Jamal had joined a coalition with Maria, Captain Torres, and community organizer Daniel Ortiz to advocate for workplace surveillance policies that protected victims while respecting privacy. There was a hearing where testimony from Leah O'Connor and Anthony Green helped the prosecutor secure a conviction. Richard faced sentencing and did not cut the sentence, but accompanied a mandatory restitution. The Magnolia closed briefly, reopened under new management with Evelyn Price replaced by a board that included community members. Jamal found himself speaking at a small seminar run by an NGO called Workers First, telling other workers how documentation and solidarity had shifted the balance. His mother, Rosa, came to hear him, hands folded, pride like a warm shawl around her shoulders. If this story stayed with you, tell us where you watched from. Did you ever witness something similar at work? Start your comment with "I saw" or "I felt" so we can map patterns and help each other. Your words matter because they help identify problems that become policies. If you want to follow the next updates on the hearing and the resources used in this case, subscribe to our channel. For Jamal, the end was not only the arrest, it was a slow return of dignity, a reclamation of a shift that no longer demanded apology for existing. Justice did not thunder in a single moment. It arrived as paperwork, as procedure, as community backing, and as a conviction that changed a small-town diner and a dozen schedules. In the quiet, after the lights had dimmed and the evidence was cataloged, Jamal stood outside the bistro and breathed in coffee and rain and a feeling that something had finally been put right. Justice had arrived not as spectacle, but as meticulous work, and a camera that would not let cruel words vanish into the night.